I'm Cara. Welcome to the Historical Society podcast.
And so we were just basically discuss how Cara and I are kind of different people, and in many ways our differences hopefully will help the podcast be better. I'm basically nerdy. And Cara, you used this analogy once to describe me to somebody. You're like, Amanda's excited about everything. She was so excited when she found this cherry
oh
granola
my
bars.
God.
Cherry granola bars.
This granola bar has nuts in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love for things to make me that happy. They do not.
Yeah.
I have a harder time like finding joy in little things. But I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. And also a little bit of ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah. I think I don't fully understand it, but I think it's your brain needs constant stimulation. So you just kind of get bored really fast.
Right.
Super annoying.
And unfortunately, the stuff I want to talk about sometimes is
well, also
boring.
Organization can be a tough thing for people with ADHD. So like if a lot of information's coming at you, your brain kind of goes into overdrive, I think, and you have a hard time processing things really quickly.
So
but you can read like a list of facts and just be enamored by it. And I almost get angry.
Aww. Sorry.
I think it's like a brain that longs to learn.
Yeah.
But has these things that complicate it.
Oh.
Don't say all.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just how some people's brains work.
Yeah. And so I guess on the podcast, I'm going to rely on Cara to help gauge the boredom. And so today's episode, we were going to talk about about politics, basically politics and women.
Yep.
And we were going to focus in on the history of political parties in the United States early on, and then move up into the present. Look at the party platforms, look at the candidates, and then celebrate some women. So along the way, hopefully Cara can help me not drone on.
Well, I mean,
ask pertinent questions.
It's all very interesting. I think I would like this to be like more of a
game show,
a dialogue between us, like something that we would be having a discussion between ourselves.
Right.
There's just people listening.
Yeah.
Other people listening.
Yeah. We're going to keep working on that. Maybe we could get there to make it a little bit better.
I think so.
Yeah.
All
right.
So where are we starting?
So we're going to start from the early history of the political party formation within the United States. Okay. So early on, you had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists were led by Alexander Hamilton, who favored a stronger central government and coalesced around the commercial sector of the country. And then you had the Anti-Federalists, who were led by Thomas Jefferson and favored states retaining more power and independence, preserving individual rights. They drew their strength from the agrarian part of society, which we've looked up and we know now it involves agriculture and cultivation of land.
Okay.
Yeah. And early on, there was a lot of struggle between these two groups. That second group would also go on to be named the Jeffersonian Republicans, or even the Democratic Republicans, which is kind of funny. And George Washington, he was a little concerned about the strife between these parties, and he has this quote from September 19th of 1796 in his farewell address that says, "Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party generally." So I thought that was kind of an interesting quote. All right, so moving on, the Federalists ended up fading away to some extent, and the Republican Party divided into two segments. The National Republicans, who wanted federal bank, federal funding of infrastructure, thank you, things like roads and canals, and then the Old Republicans, who wanted to continue states' rights and smaller federal government. And so I just want to take a second that we, in fact, have our very first guest on the podcast.
It's a dog.
It's Coda. And so
Dakota.
That is Coda.
Coda
She's trying to be involved in this conversation. Maybe she's letting me know that I'm already boring her.
This is the boredom meter.
Unfortunately,
boredometer.
Or fortunately, Coda. Yeah, boredom.
It's like bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, hitting the. So Coda will probably be coming back on the podcast here, I'm assuming. But anyway, okay, so National Republicans, Old Republicans, and then eventually they couldn't agree on a presidential nominee. and they split into two parties, known as the Democratic Party and the Whig Party. And at that time, the Democratic Party supported Andrew Jackson, and the Whig Party supported candidate Henry Clay. And they were fighting on things like the federal bank, import tariffs, funding infrastructure. Okay. Along the way, there were also little other parties, but they weren't as big of a deal as these bigger parties. Last week, we talked about Victoria Woodhull, and she formed her own party, I think, or was part of this other smaller party.
Yeah.
And then you have this other party called the Liberty Party, which that party actually helped bring slavery into mainstream political issues.
And they were anti-slavery.
They were anti-slavery. And then there was this other party I don't know anything about called the Free Soil Party, and then the other one called the Anti-Masonic Party.
Free Soil Party.
That was where they gave each other
for gardeners.
Dirt. Yeah.
Yep.
Also known as the Green Thumb Party.
What is that?
Okay. All right. So in the 1850s, both parties had massive splits over the issue of slavery. The Whig Party dissolved and was replaced by a new party that was a coalition party. Some from the Free Soil Party, the Democratic Party, and the Whig Party. And they wanted to block the spread of slavery into the nation's western territories. The Democratic Party also split over the issue of slavery in the years leading up to the Civil War, the Northern Democrats adopting an anti-slavery stance and the Southern Democrats wanting pro-slavery. And the Southern Democrats ultimately left the Senate in support of secession, and so the Confederacy. And basically, by the end of the Civil War, during the time of Reconstruction, we are basically at our modern day two-party system, and that's where that is. Shoo! That was okay. Everybody, you hung in there.
Whew, I was losing it.
Yeah, Cara almost fell asleep.
Nope. Clinging to that Free Soil Party.
Yeah, that's right. Some dirt. And
party.
Let's see, any other thing?
What is
So what ended up happening, interestingly, in our parties, and I read a little bit of a book about this. I wasn't able to finish it. I just didn't have enough time. It's called Politics and Women's Rights. And it's a study on what happens, this realignment between what their platforms are going to look like. And this realignment happened in like the 50s through the 70s, basically.
Okay.
And this book, the author's name, I forget her first name.
Christina?
Is
that right?
Yeah, Wolbrecht or
Yeah.
Volbrecht.
Yeah.
It's so Wolbrecht. Mm-hmm. She's professor at the University of Notre Dame, or was when she wrote this book. I think it's from the 90s. Okay. Anyway, I actually had trouble finding books about this realignment. And so she, in regards to women's rights in particular. So she basically posits that this realignment happened because the constituencies within the parties themselves shifted, like the power shifted a little bit. And the issue of women's rights changed a little bit to become more inclusive of other issues. And there was a rise within the Republican Party of social conservatives who were religious, basically. And so as that kind of entity or group constituency started to kind of have more power, what ended up happening, the Republican Party walked away from women's rights and the Democratic Party took it over. And strangely, they also, maybe not strangely, the Democratic Party then also became the party of the civil rights and became the party of pro-union. And the Republicans, it's kind of like capitalism, low taxes, and conservative social issues. That became kind of like what they're known for. So, yeah, that's kind of the basis. So around 1950 through 1970, the parties flipped. So the Democratic Party used to be pro-slavery. And so it's almost ironic that it's turned into the Civil Rights Party, the party that protects minorities and women. Yeah, it's really interesting. And the GOP basically has not considered that as important. And what was also interesting in regards to like women's right to vote, it was more of a consensus. Like both parties kind of wanted that to happen initially. But then especially in the 70s, there was this push away from it. And during that time, so there's something that kind of marked this change as well. There was a piece of legislation called the Equal Rights Amendment that was supposed to finally put into the Bill of Rights that women are in fact going to be treated equally to men, period. And originally there was a pretty strong consensus, like I was saying, that we were going to reach the threshold to amend the Constitution. And that threshold, I believe, was 38 states. Like 75% of the states had to ratify this amendment. And during the process of ratification, there was a strong movement that rose up from the conservatives, from the Republican Party, to go against this. Because one woman in particular, her name was Phyllis Schlafly, and we're in St. Louis, and she's from here, basically. She passed away years ago. And she lived kind of an ironic life in that she was extremely educated, obviously working for this cause out in the public sphere, but yet she wanted basically traditional women. Like, she wanted women to kind of be a mom and stay at home, I think. That was kind of her. And men were going to do this, and so the family had to look like this, but yet she was not quite doing that herself. Roles. Yeah, she was very invested in traditional roles. Anti-abortion, anti-gay. Mm-hmm. And so that was her big push. And so because of the movement she created, the Republican Party, being socially conservative, they ended up wanting the amendment to not pass anymore. And so there was an extension for ratification to go up until 1982, but not enough states ratified it. So still in the U.S., we don't have the Equal Rights Amendment. I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, another thing I wanted to point out for the Democratic Party to show the switch. In 1963, JFK, Democratic presidential candidate and also president, he passed the Equal Pay Act, and then Lyndon Johnson, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So those are both Democrats. So you can see how their position has already changed as a party. All right, we talked about the... Yes, please.
I think we need to go back to the Free Soil Party.
Oh, we do? Did you learn information?
I did, and I want to make sure that, I mean, we were kind of making fun of the name, but it was founded in 1848. It included members of the Conscience Whigs Party, Democrats, and members of the Liberty Party. Their motto was free soil, free speech, free labor, and free men. It was a third party whose main purpose was opposing the expansion of slavery into the western territories acquired after the war with Mexico. The party argued that free men on free soil was a morally and economically superior system to slavery. Yeah.
Okay, so it's an anti-slavery party.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. The party membership was absorbed by the Republican Party at its founding in 1854. Okay.
Yeah.
Since we brought it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you.
Explained it a little.
That was pretty cool. Okay, so I think at this point, that's kind of the history of the political parties and how they had this flop that happened, like in the 70s-ish. Now, what we wanted to do was actually to take you through the political platforms that are present right now for the Republican Party and for the Democratic Party. I got the PDF from the Democratic National Convention or National Committee's page, and then I got the Republicans' version from Donald Trump's website. So I'll just go through them really quick. I'll start with Trump's. And so what I did when I read these in the book app on my iPhone, and I searched women. I just wanted to see like how many times does the word women or woman show up. And in the Republican document, in Trump's document, it was only 6 times. I believe that's right. I feel like it was 6. I'm going to look it up again because I don't want to give the wrong number. Okay, I'm going to search right now, live. Okay, woman.
Also do women.
6. Okay, and then the word woman.
Women. Didn't you just do that?
No women. No woman.
No woman. Women.
6 times women.
Okay.
And 2 times girls.
Okay.
Girl. 1.
How about girls?
6 women. That is girls. And 1 girl.
Okay.
Girls. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. Their document is shorter than the Republicans, considerably. But that's where we're starting.
Then the Democrats.
Then the Democrats.
You said Republicans.
Oops. This is why Cara is here. For many reasons.
I knew what you meant.
You're here for other reasons too. Sorry.
Thank you.
But you're definitely going to help me not say the wrong thing. Okay. Then really fast, we're going to look at the Democratic Party. I'm going to do the same thing. Their platform. Okay, I'm going to type in the word women. And it is...
Wow.
82 matches.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'll type in the word girl too, since we did that. And that is 6. So we have 82 and then 6.
Okay.
So there's a pretty big disparity there. Even though the documents are of quite different lengths, the Democratic platform is much longer.
Yeah.
It's going to be really quick. Like, if you take the time to look at these, you'll understand why I say it's going to be really clear. So, the first the first use of the word woman on the Trump document is just the beginning. To the forgotten men and women of America. And I kind of want to know, who are the forgotten people? Like, who are they?
I don't know.
Shouldn't it be to everybody? To the people of America. To the people, yeah.
Well, the other people are remembered, so...
Yeah, I guess so.
They don't need help.
I suppose not. Okay, so we have the word woman on the first page.
Acknowledged.
We have the word woman in the first sentence. And then we have the word woman, keep men out of women's sports. And then we have the word woman, where? Somewhere else. Oh, no, here we go. Wait, was that one?
Yep.
No. The word women on page 15. Our ranks include men and women. Okay. And then the word women, we will keep men out of women's sports. So that's it. So that's the Republican platform for women. Keep men out of women's sports.
I'm going to turn on our...
Oh, yeah, we forgot about our...
I didn't forget
our
about
sign.
it.
You did
I've
not.
been thinking about it.
I would have forgotten. I'm really happy you did that because I spent money on this.
Spent money on everything.
I did. I wanted
Okay.
to have a fun sign.
What did you call it earlier?
I called it a Lazy Susan earlier. So for those listening to the podcast, I went on Etsy and I bought this. It looks like a road sign. And on the top of it, one sign says Harris, and then the other sign says 2024. On the back of that one, it says Walls. And I bought this little rotating... turntable.
You called it a Lazy Susan
I
earlier.
totally called it a Lazy Susan.
And I was like, we should get our Tupperware off of it.
Yeah, and
That's
then I
mine.
said, I want to take my potatoes off of it. But,
Which I don't
and then we were like, that's
understand.
weird. Okay. Anyway,
But where do you get that from?
I was thinking there would be food on the little Lazy Susan. You know, we'd be
And
passing around food.
Where did you see that?
When I went to China.
Okay.
When I went to China once, I went to a restaurant and there was a giant Lazy Susan.
Like as the table?
It was on the table. It
So
was like
you weren't
5
spinning?
by... No. Yes, you had the ability to move it yourself.
Oh, but you weren't spinning with it.
No,
Yeah.
it was freestanding.
It'd be hard to eat, trying to not throw up.
Yeah. Though the restaurants where they spin slowly, those are fun.
No, I don't think so.
No, you don't like those? I like those. Okay.
No, I have vestibular migraine.
Yeah, that
would
would not be good.
horrific.
Yeah, you get nauseous.
Dizzy.
Dizzy, sorry. And maybe nauseous.
Both.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so basically the things where women are talked about deal with issues related to transgender rights. They want to take those away, basically, Republicans. And being, I want to make sure that I didn't miss something. Because they talk about abortion somewhere here. I mean, the Republican Party is anti-abortion. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. So, yeah, I don't see it anymore. I swear I saw the word IVF in here somewhere. IVF. Okay. Oh, it is. It's right there. It's their point 5. Republicans will end left-wing gender insanity. Oh my. Stop taxpayer-funded schools from promoting gender transition. No one's promoting that. That's what it's so... Anyway. Reverse Biden's radical rewrite of Title IX and restore protections for women and girls. IVF is supposed to be on here somewhere.
You didn't find it?
IVF.
I thought...
Oh, there it is. We will oppose late-term abortion while supporting mothers in policies that advance prenatal care, access to birth control, and IVF. The problem with this
So they
statement...
mentioned mothers.
Yeah. The problem with this statement is that there's another document out called Project 2025. And I think at least 12, it's somewhere between 12 and 20, I can't remember the exact number, of former Trump administration officials helped write this document. And over 110, around 110 conservative groups along with the mother group, the Heritage Foundation, are responsible for this document.
Mm-hmm.
And in this document, they are against IVF. They are against all abortion, and they are also against basically birth control. They don't think that women should have to pay for themselves, and they're not really interested in it. Like they don't really think it's important. And there are people within the conservative movement that don't think that women should have access to any kind of contraceptives. It's so
they're trying to control every aspect of this.
Yeah, and that's why when you look at this very short, non-detailed Trump platform policy, that is the GOP policy, I think it's unwise to think that somehow it's separated from the other document, Project 2025. They're intertwined. The president of the Heritage Foundation wrote a book, and J.D. Vance wrote the foreword for this new book. And I believe I've seen an article where the Heritage Foundation president said his first choice for the vice presidency was J.D. Vance. So there's this intermeshing of the Trump administration, Trump campaign, and the Project 2025. And to say that somehow Trump is not related to it or has never heard of it because he's spoken at events by the Heritage Foundation is just lies. They're just lying. And so, you see, I think it's in Alabama where they have outlawed IVF. And there's just a push to dismantle a lot of things that women have had rights on by the Republican Party. Okay, so that it's really quick. There's not much to say about the Republican platform for women. We just wanted to see if they said anything, and they didn't. Not really. Nothing of substance, other than taking stuff away. Okay, so I wanted to go to the Democratic platform, and some of this, it seems like it has not fully been rewritten since Harris became the candidate. And so there's a lot of reference in here to President Biden and things that he did during his administration. But obviously, Kamala Harris was part of some of that, and she is mentioned here in here as well. Let's see. Women, I'm going to see if I can find... So they talk about protecting access to reproductive health care, reducing maternal mortality. Harris is calling for a full year of postpartum coverage for Medicaid beneficiaries with 46 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And they're all taking that step now. Okay, let me go on to... So in the Trump document, basically the word was just mentioned, women, and then like a little blurb about keeping men out of women's sports. But in this document, you have big issues about women's rights, violence against women that are brought up that take up a lot of space. So this first one is on page 43, violence against women. It says, ending violence against women has been the cause of President Biden's life. In the U.S. Senate, with the help of courageous and committed advocates, he wrote the original Violence Against Women Act and spent the following decades working to expand and improve it with each reauthorization. As president, he was proud not only to reauthorize this landmark law, but also strengthen it. Democrats secured the highest ever funding level for the act implementation and are distributing record funding for local prosecutors, law enforcement, and survivor advocates. Crucially, the administration has also expanded support for Native survivors and strengthened protections for tribal communities, improved prevention and services for survivors of sexual assault, including through the Fairness for Rape Kit Backlog Survivors Act, expanding housing protections for domestic violence survivors, and increased services and support for survivors, including survivors of technology-facilitated abuse. Interesting. Biden launched the first ever national plan to end gender-based violence, and the American Rescue Plan provided immediate crisis intervention, health support, and emergency services for survivors. He expanded funding for campus sexual assault prevention and is keeping students safe on campus by restoring and strengthening protections under Title IX, including explicit protections for LGBTQI+ students. He signed legislation that narrowed the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. He signed into law new protections to support survivors and address sexual assault and sexual harassment in the workplace. And he signed a historic executive order on sexual assault and domestic violence in the military, transferring key decision-making authority from commanders to independent military prosecutors, the most significant transformation of the military justice system since the Uniform Code of Military Justice that was established in 1950. Trump, it goes on to say, Trump has made it abundantly clear that he doesn't care about ending violence against women. As president, he failed to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, and his administration rolled back campus sexual assault protections, making it even harder for survivors to get the justice they deserve. I remember when that happened. It made me very angry during his presidency. Cara, you were also going to, you had mentioned that, I think it was 2013, 2014, that under President Obama, that there was this commission that was...
There was a committee formed to basically overhaul the rules and regulations of sexual assault in the military.
Yeah.
There was a congressional committee. Let's see. Military. I want to make sure I get the dates right. I think it was comprised in 2013, and then they put the reports forth, the recommendations forth in 2014.
Right. And I know from this document that Biden had, obviously, through executive order, he transferred the key decision-making authority from commanders who are, in the past, commanders from the military investigated sexual assault complaints and sexual harassment complaints. And now it's a third party. It's an independent military prosecutor who's So the authority has been transferred.
Independent of the situation.
Yeah. Right. Which is what should be happening.
Yep.
And so he took steps to take that seriously, what they recommended. And in this document, this platform, the Democratic Party wants to continue following those procedures and try to make them better in the military. Let's see. They want to work with schools to implement and enforce Title IX and end sexual harassment and assault in the nation's schools. We will eliminate the rape kit backlog and will strengthen legal protections for and support survivors of deepfake image-based sexual abuse, building on the federal civil cause of action established under the president's reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act.
The rape kit backlog is a huge issue. That needs to be taken care of. They need the funding or whatever the issue is. I think it's usually funding.
Yeah.
But those things should sit on shelves. Just sit there.
Yeah.
Like, these crimes don't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
It's so infuriating.
Yeah. The platform goes on to discuss how under Biden's administration, he made a point of selecting judges that would make sure the judiciary looked like the population of the United States. So he went out of his way to pick women judges and people of color because so often most of the judges have been white men.
Yeah.
He also nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson as the first Black woman to ever be on the Supreme Court. Let's see. They also talk about 90% of women have used contraception, and the Democrats are working to expand access to birth control. That's there. Then there's a whole section just called Women's Rights. Despite the progress we've made since our nation's founding, there is more work ahead to knock down the barriers that stand in the way of women and girls realizing their full potential. In a country founded on freedom and equality, nothing is more fundamental. They say Democrats will fight to make the Equal Rights Amendment the law of the land. They've done things like the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, the Pump Act, the Million Women in Construction Initiative, the Good Jobs Initiative, the Paycheck Fairness Act. They want to pass that. That has not been passed yet. It talks about guaranteeing affordable, high-quality childcare from birth until kindergarten. Okay, so in Project 2025, I found this really interesting. They want to eliminate what is it called? It's not. What is it's like
maternity leave?
It's preschool, but it's called something start. Head Start.
Head Start. Yeah, I remember that. Why?
They want to eliminate it because they say there's abuse happening within it, and so they just want to get rid of it completely.
There's abuse happening everywhere.
Yeah, but it's
about just holding people to account.
And also in Project 2025, they make clear that their idea of the way Americans should look and behave should be only a man and a woman raising children. That's it. That's the ultimate. And so, any kind of LGBT anything is out. And they also
but
believe...
doesn't that exclude, like, single
Yeah,
single
they
family?
are. They also don't, it seems like almost they're dissing single mothers.
It's just too generalized.
Because they do all this stuff to promote fathers. There's a bunch of stuff within Project 2025 that specifically is only geared to help fathers. So it seems so weird to me. And I mean, like, men haven't really white men have not faced a lot of discrimination in this country. I don't understand.
Not a lot about the world makes a whole lot of sense.
Let's see. They launched the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline, and this is cool. Biden and the First Lady launched the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, and it aimed to fundamentally change how we approach and fund women's health research in the United States. It included $100 million to fund it says ARPA-H Sprint. I don't know what that is. Women's health. And $200 million for the National Institutes of Health wide effort to catalyze interdisciplinary research. They also want to focus on commitments to advance women's health research, and especially research on menopause-related conditions and women's midlife health, which there's very little research that's been done so far. And that's kind of interesting because if you know anything about how the medical and scientific communities have handled women's health, it's basically like it's not important, because for the longest time there weren't women in these fields to do the research. And in the United States, most of the studies have been done on men for a long time, white men in particular. And then you have, like, the terrible history of how black Americans were treated, black women especially, in this, research area, and they were basically tortured. So the fact that the Democratic Party is saying, hey, we want to research properly women's health, that's brand new, and I'm so excited about that because there's still so much that's not known. I read an article about it in the Scientific American. Okay. I think it's super exciting because I'm a woman, and I want my doctor to have all the knowledge that she needs as well. Okay. Let's see. We talked about that. We talked about women's veterans health.
Did you want to talk more extensively about the Equal Rights Act?
I don't know if we need to. If you want to, we can.
No, I mean, just kind of that it's still open-ended.
Right.
I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And it was started by Alice Paul in 1923, right after women were granted the right to vote in 1920.
And it was extended.
Yeah, and they extended it up until 1982, waiting for states to ratify it.
And it's sort of been just left there.
Yeah. And
ever since.
Yeah. And so there's a bunch of, like, it's like in limbo.
Some states have ratified since.
Right.
But there's no real, like, official.
Yeah, nothing official has happened.
Nature to that.
Yeah, because that time frame has elapsed.
Government isn't on board.
Yeah.
Legally, I guess.
Well, I think it's the Congress
officially.
Congress needs to come up with, they need to deal with it. They need to say, let's do this. But yeah. Okay, the last thing I was going to point out was the Democratic Party. It says President Biden believes the United States must continue to be a strong advocate for rights and opportunities of women and girls around the world. Under his leadership, the United States issued its first ever national strategy on gender equity and equality, which recognizes that elevating the status of women and girls is not just the right thing to do, it is a strategic imperative that advances American interests in prosperity and stability. And so, the platforms are very different in when it comes to women, even speaking about women, even mentioning what could be of concern to women, like specifically.
Yeah.
And so that I found that really interesting. The next thing we were going to do was look at the two candidates. So we have Donald Trump and we have Kamala Harris. And I pulled up an article from USA Today that talks about the fact that Trump has been accused by 19 women of sexual misconduct. And obviously we have E. Jean Carroll, who won a case where the jury found him guilty. Is that the right word? For sexual abuse.
Yeah, accountable. They accountable to
yeah.
it. They found him. What is the word for that?
Let me see if it says it in here. The jury found Trump not liable for rape, but instead sexual abuse. They found him liable for sexual abuse. Yeah, which is interesting. okay, so the article...
That usually means they just can't prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. Doesn't mean...
It was also a civil case.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so, okay, so the standards are different.
The standards are
different.
different.
But even so, it's up to jurors to reach a conclusion based on the evidence that they have.
Right, and they concluded he was liable.
Sometimes you don't always have the evidence you want or need in these cases.
Yeah.
Since these things do happen in isolated spaces.
Right.
Typically.
There were 2 people, that was it.
So.
But she had told people. And,
yeah.
Yeah. So the article is called 19 Women Have Accused Trump of Sexual Misconduct. Carroll Verdict Bolsters Their Claims. Allegations of women who've accused Trump of non-consensual sexual contact share many details, from forced kisses to where it took place. And so if you want to look up this article, USA Today published originally May 9th of 2023 and updated this year, January 23rd of 2024 in USA Today. The authors Janine Santucci, Jim Sargent, and George Petrus. I have no idea if I said the names right. But anyway, it's a rundown, basically. They even have a chart of what the women have said Trump did to them. And so on one side, we have this guy. And we've heard how he speaks about women. He calls them ugly and nasty and horse face and all sorts of things. And when it comes to sexual assault, he uses all the tropes like, oh, she's not my type. She's not pretty enough. I would blah, blah, blah. It's just, and we also have a candidate who has been photographed on multiple occasions hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Mm-hmm. Epstein?
I don't care.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so that is who
care.
The party of social conservatism, who believe in religion and purity and morality. They used to be called the moral majority back when we were kids, 80s, 90s. This is who they want to represent them. I just find that bewildering, shocking. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's that candidate. And then on the other side, we have Kamala Harris, who was a sex crime prosecutor, who we have a New York Times article I pulled up. Harris cracked down on violent offenders, showed leniency on less serious crime. This was reported by Robert Draper, published in September 22nd of 2024 this year, and then updated the next day, September 23rd, 2024. And he just talks about her background as a prosecutor. He writes that she was tough on child abuse. Let me see if I can find the exact. She prosecuted against sex trafficking, child abuse. The article is actually quite long. So the contrast is so stark between these 2 candidates. It's not even just the fact that she's a woman. That's great. I think it's great that we have a woman who's running for the presidency and is the nominee. But it's what she stands for. She stands for protecting women and children from sexual assault. That was her life's work before she came into office. And then on this side, you have someone who's accused by many women of sexual misconduct and assault. And I'm just like, why are we here? How did this happen?
Well, they don't believe
exactly.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
If it's their candidate, they don't believe the women.
Right.
If it's their friend, they don't believe the women. If it's their family, they don't believe women. I mean, it's
the same.
Yeah.
Same story.
Tale as old as time.
Different guy.
Infuriating.
Yeah. So that was basically
allows it to go on unabated forever and ever.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the gist of what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to discuss we wanted to have a paper trail, kind of. We wanted to look through the documents of what they support and how they relate to women. And also I find it really unique. We have talked a lot about sexual violence and how only one party is even willing to discuss it, willing to bring it up as an issue they want to make sure gets better, because it's a real problem.
Definitely is.
For sure. Also, the Trump accusations, there's a statistic. I have trouble again. Statistic. Mm-hmm. From the RAINN organizations, RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network.org, RAINN.org. The statistic for false allegations is somewhere between 2 and 8%. That's it.
It's very low.
And so you have 19 women coming forward saying Trump has there's sexual misconduct here.
Yeah, it's equal to or lower than any other crime.
Yeah. and yet, so many people aren't believing the women. But that's what you have to remember.
Reaction.
Yeah. So you have to remember that when a woman comes forward, it's much more likely that she's telling the truth than it is that she's bringing a false allegation.
They also say that those stats are likely much lower because oftentimes when a case doesn't get prosecuted for any number of reasons which are outside the victim's control, and sometimes it's like, well, they think they don't have enough evidence, or sometimes it's I don't know all the reasons. So they call them no bills, but sometimes those no bills, they get put in the false allegation pile, which is not accurate. It's just that the case didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. I think we did a good job here summarizing stuff for giving people stuff to think about and look up. We are now at our segment of Celebrate Women.
Yeah.
And we're going to put on our party hats.
Okay, but let's not go crazy about her story because I think she's...
Okay, Kara's going to help me cut down this next lady's story.
She's
Kara did not find it interesting.
No, it's just... It's not true. I'm struggling.
She struggles. Struggle busting it. Yeah. Okay, so let's celebrate. You're going to ring the Liberty Bell.
Okay.
The replica, and
right,
I'm going to...
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay,
cool. Thank you, Cara, for putting up with my
You're welcome.
love of partying. Okay. Or just being nerdy.
No.
That's really all this is. I'm just being nerdy. Okay.
It's a very specific kind of party.
True.
So,
okay, tea
that's
party.
all I'm saying.
Okay. I've got my tea over here.
Yeah.
Green
tea.
Really? I do. I have my green tea.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first woman is Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and she lived from 1815 to 1902. She was an author, lecturer, and chief philosopher of the women's rights and suffrage movements. She formulated the agenda for women's rights that guided the struggle well into the 20th century. Born November 12, 1815, in Johnstown, New York, she was the daughter of Margaret Livingston and Daniel Cady, Johnstown's most prominent citizens. She received a formal education at Johnstown Academy and the Emma Willard's Troy Female Seminary in New York. Her father was a noted lawyer and state assemblyman, and young Elizabeth gained an informal legal education by talking with him and listening on his conversations with colleagues and guests. She was a well-educated woman, and she married abolitionist lecturer Henry Stanton in 1840. She became active in the anti-slavery movement and worked alongside leading abolitionists of the day. Let's see. While she was honeymooning in London, very highbrow, she attended the World's Anti-Slavery Convention, where she met abolitionist Lucretia Mott, who, like her, was also angry about the exclusion of women at the proceedings. So women were not allowed to go into the meetings. Mott and Stanton, now fast friends, vowed to call a women's rights convention when they returned home. And 8 years later, in 1848, Stanton and Mott held the first women's rights convention at Seneca Falls in New York. Stanton was the author of a document called the Declaration of Sentiments. And interestingly, like the famous quote, "All men are created equal" in our founding documents, she changes to "All men and women are created equal." And in this document, she lists out 18 grievances that include things like, they're upset about women not having any control of their wages, their property, having trouble getting custody of their children in a divorce, lack of rights to vote, and many other things. Let's see. She ends up working with Susan B. Anthony, and I'm just trying to get through this quickly. She became involved. Yeah, that's good. Very much anti-slavery and women's rights. That was kind of what she was. Yeah. Women's suffrage. So the only other thing I would mention is like black women were not allowed to go to the original women's convention, like the very first convention in 1848. Wow. And they had their own organization. And we'll talk about some of the...
But in terms of equity, still a long way to go.
Yeah. Oh, totally. So they were anti-slavery, but they were not willing to include black women, unfortunately, in these events. Stanton obviously did a great work and, was integral in getting passage for women to to finally be given the right to vote. Not earn it. They already earned it. They were born. They're here.
Afforded.
Yeah. Granted. Okay, so that's Elizabeth Cady Stanton. All right, now the next woman we were going to celebrate is Stacey Abrams. And I pulled this. Okay, so I forgot to say, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, all of the information I got from the National Women's Museum. No, that's not right. It has another title. The National Women's History Museum?
National Women's History Museum, yep.
Yes. Okay. And it says it was edited by Deborah Michaels, PhD. So I'm wondering if this information was written by her. So
Okay.
I wanted to give credit where credit is due. Okay, next, Stacey Abrams. I took what I'm going to read from her website. I'm just going to read a couple things. Stacey Abrams is a New York Times bestselling author, entrepreneur, producer, and political leader. She served 11 years in the Georgia House of Representatives, 7 as minority leader, and was the first Black woman to become the gubernatorial nominee for a major political party in the United States. Rooted in values instilled by her parents and the belief that her job is to do as much good as she can, Stacey works to open doors of possibility and create solutions, opportunities, and strategies that help others transform their potential into power. Dedicated to expanding possibility and progress for current and future generations, Stacey has founded several solution-driven entities spanning the impact, for-profit, and entertainment sectors. As a nonprofit founder, Stacey has launched multiple organizations devoted to voting rights, training and hiring young people of color, and tackling social and economic issues at the state and national levels, including Fair Fight Action, Fair Count, the Southern Economic Advancement Project, and the American Pride Rises Network. She also has founded financial service firm Now Account Corporation, Insomnia Consulting, with a focus on infrastructure and energy, the beverage company Nourish Incorporated, and she launched the production company SageWorks Productions Incorporated in 2020. She serves as the Ronald W. Walters Endowed Chair for Race and Black Politics at Howard University and is a senior counsel to Rewiring America. She's been nominated for an Emmy Award. She's received awards from the NAACP. And her documentary, All In, The Fight for Democracy, was shortlisted for the Academy Awards in 2020. She is also the author of political thrillers, romantic suspense, leadership, and business nonfiction, civic engagement, and children's books. Let's see. Stacey sits on both nonprofit and corporate boards, is a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Relations. She was a tax attorney by training. She holds degrees from Spelman College, the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas, and Yale Law School.
Wow.
I had heard of Stacey Abrams and followed her kind of on the news over the past, since 2016 or so, when she would be interviewed. But I did not know she was so prolific. She's done amazing. So much. And Cara and I were going to watch her documentary, All In, The Fight for Democracy, How the Right to Vote Went Wrong. That's on Amazon Prime. And she's written other books, and I think it's kind of cool that she wrote romantic suspense. So she's done nonfiction and fiction. It's just she does it all. It's really fascinating and wow, very awesome.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the end. We did it. We celebrated women. We talked about politics. Thank you for putting up with me talking about facts and dates and stuffs.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to the next episode.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.